Good.
Good evening and welcome to Foxborough's Conservation Commission meeting of February 3rd, 2025 in the Gala Meeting Room. This meeting will be broadcast live and is recorded by Foxborough Cable Access. It's 7 o'clock. I'll open the meeting. Do we have any public comments? All right, here are none. Do we have some minutes?
We do have some minutes. So I reviewed the minutes from the December 9th meeting. I wasn't there in person, but I watched the recording, and there's two, I think, minor corrections. One is that during the discussion of 17 Eisenhower Lane, at one point, Bill Buckley joins the discussion on it, and I didn't know if that needed to be included in the minutes or not.
No.
Okay. And the only other thing on that was that it says in the minutes that the date of the site walk was going to be December 13th, but it actually was December 16th. That was the date discussed at the meeting. So, but other than that one correction, they looked good to me, and I would. If nobody else has any corrections.
Anybody? Comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the December 9th meeting.
Second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And do we have time for another one?
Zoom?
Sure.
Anybody on Zoom from us?
What's that?
Anybody on Zoom from us?
No.
Okay.
So I also reviewed the minutes from the January 13th meeting. They seemed complete to me, and I didn't find any corrections that were needed. So I'll make a motion to second, to
Anybody else
approve
have
those.
any problems or any? Okay. You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Been 7:05. We have a request for determination.
Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetland Protection Act, and Foxborough's Wetland Protection Bylaw, Chapter 267, the Conservation Commission will open a public meeting on Monday, February 3rd, 2025, at 7:05 p.m. in the Gala Meeting Room, Foxborough Town Hall, 40 South Street, or via Zoom, on a request for determination of applicability filed by Mass Electric Company for activities associated with electrical distribution line pole work along Spring Street, Hope Avenue, and Morse Street, within 100 feet of a wetland resource area. The application is available for public inspection in the Conservation Office at Town Hall. This notice can also be found on the Massachusetts Newspaper Publishers Association website.
Do we have anyone representing Mass Electric? Or
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
oh,
Someone's on Zoom.
are you on Zoom?
I am on Zoom.
Okay. I don't see you, or
Not on
Oh.
camera.
Okay.
okay, not on camera, just on voice. All right.
Hello, good evening. My name is Honora Lovelace Cassell with BSC Group. I am here on behalf of the Massachusetts Electric Company for the relocation of 2 poles on Spring Street and the installation of 1 pole on Morse Street and an associated ground grid. The relocations and pole installation are within bordering land subject to flooding and within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. They are within the public right-of-way. They will be accessed from the street, appropriate BMPs will be used to ensure resources are not affected by these pole relocations and installations. Are there any questions?
Are you going, replace in the same spot, basically pull in one and then taking the other one out? are putting it in?
These, oh, sorry, you can
Okay.
continue. The two poles along Spring Street are being moved greater than 10 feet from the existing. So the existing poles will be removed, and the new poles will be installed, and then the existing poles will be removed. However, they are considered relocations as they are greater than 10 feet from the original pole location. And then the pole on Morse Street is a new midspan pole, not a relocation.
All right. And how long do you anticipate after the work is done on the new poles to remove the old ones?
That is dependent upon, I do not know currently if there's other services on those poles, but Massachusetts Electric would install the new pole, they would move over their line, and then if there is Verizon or Comcast or another access to the pole, that would need to be moved over. Once that is moved over, the pole would be removed.
All right. Nadia, any comments?
My comment was just going to be based off of what you end up choosing for the issuance. I just made a note that if you do a negative determination, I think it would be good to just add in the conditions about sediment controls and just best management practices when they're removing the poles.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
I have just one question. On the second, page 202 environmental resource map, you have P51 in the resource area, but it's not listed on your chart in the information that was provided on page, it's the second page, as a pole.
Pole 51 along Morse Street?
Yes. Definitely, looks
is-
like it's being moved.
It's a pole replacement, and then the little arrow is a push brace. So it's the pole and push brace are being replaced.
And they're both in the wetland resource area, right?
They are not. They are. It's misleading. It's a 1 inch to 100, so they appear closer than they actually are. They are not within that stream. They're up along the side of the road.
Don't quite understand that.
What's that, Dave?
Don't quite understand that. It's within the yellow dotted line area designating that wetland.
Within
So-
the dotted line is the 25-foot no disturb. So as it's on the edge, it's actually about 25 feet from that stream and wetland.
25 foot.
That's a 25 foot. So it's within.
On the line of the 25 foot.
It only wasn't listed on the chart, that's all.
Any other comments, questions? Any questions from the audience? Someone want to make a motion?
Sure. Make a motion to issue a negative determination of applicability for the Spring Street, Hope Avenue, and Morse Street request for determination
With the provision,
with the conditions.
Second motion?
you want to spell that?
I mean, I'm happy with quoting. your suggestion that we include BMP practices being exercised throughout the tenure of the project, as well as sediment controls be available on-site as needed.
I second the motion.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you. We'll get the paperwork to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
More than welcome. 7:10, we have a continuation for 24 Alden Street.
This one there.
Good evening.
Good evening. Craig Zaganowski of Rim Engineering, the owner of the property. Michael Blanchard, the architect, Paul Jodas, and from Environmental Consulting and Restoration, or ECR, Cameron Larson, the wetland scientist working on this project. This is a continuation of the riverfront redevelopment project that we've provided for the house addition with garage, patio, deck, and woodshed area, as well as some pavement expansion. The past meeting, it was noted that we were to, a couple of changes on the plan. One, that I had the inner riparian and outer riparian dimensions, square footage is reversed, so I changed that, and also added the individual square footages of all the components of the addition to the detail at the top right of the plan. If anybody wants a larger size plan, I do have 18 by 24 if it's easier to look at. ECR has provided a wetlands memo regarding the riverfront area, and Cameron is here to speak of that. The other thing that came up at the meeting was the possible needing to file with the Mesa. We looked into that, and we were letter from NHESP that because we're not in the rare species, we're not doing anything with that, we're not required to file. A memo to that effect was provided from NHESP, and I did provide it through the email, but I do have a copy if anybody would like to see that. We also did receive a file number from DEP and some clarification on their opinion on it in the past week. That was also provided to the town. So, as I said, Cameron is here to discuss the wetlands riverfront issues. But if you have any questions on the plan or what we went over the last time.
All right. I think I'm going to let Nadia start it off because we were at a site walk and she has some questions. So I'm going to let her run with it this time.
Okay. Let's see, where do I start first? Let's see. So we did the site walk. Obviously, Bob and I met with Cameron. We talked about the wetland delineation just on site because our initial concern, obviously, that we discussed was the flooding. With the difference in change in the flooding. Since, a couple months back, there was a site and the water wasn't really prevalent. I know I spoke with Cam over email. He sent over the table that was on the MacWeb website, which I thought was helpful. Just something that I, again, just wanted to point out is that obviously with this project, because it's at I believe it's 14.42% instead of 10% impervious, that number of degraded RFA on the table is 1436, which is positive, and it's usually meant to be a negative. So because of that, obviously, there's the mitigation that you included, so the removal of the pavement, and then planting the trees. I know when I was looking at the plan, one of the things I wanted to address was just the witch hazel specifically. That's not a wetland plant, so something that I thought would be better than witch hazel in that area is a different wetland plant. You could do sweet pepper bush or Clethra anifolia as the more scientific name for it. The other thing is just that within the regulations, it does state that all plants should be 10 feet off the fence to give the chance to prosper, so that they can grow up to 10 feet, since the site will need to be monitored for the mitigation for up to 2 years. So that was something I did want to point out there. I know we discussed the septic. I'm under the impression that based off of the conservation agent at the time, it may or may not have gone through from the Board of Health to the conservation agent. So therefore, it's not something that can be revisited, since obviously I wasn't there in 2011 when that occurred. But I know that was something I did want to address, at least the vegetation there. That's at least first off, but wanted to get the commission's comments on that first.
Anything from the board?
So Nadia, you're just saying that with the trees that in that mitigation area, you would have them move them closer to the 25-foot buffer and away from the fence line?
Yep. And then the other thing too is, if that does obviously get changed, just in terms of the plans, it would have to be indicated on the plans, like where you're planting each of these, like how many there would be. But that also leads into the other thing I wanted to bring up, which was, again, this is more to the commission at least, within the Foxborough regulations, it does mention about a no net positive. There's a lot of information in there about it. I do have it for reference if anyone wants to look at it. Because based off of the terminology that was presented, there's a difference of stating wetlands versus wetland resource areas. If it is meant by the quote that, again, I can provide here for wetland resource areas versus wetlands, there may have to be a reevaluation of the mitigation because it heavily talks about wetland restoration or replication rather than mitigation. Wasn't sure if you guys had thoughts on what was meant in wetlands versus wetland resource area in the regs at the time.
Everybody looks at Jim. Is that synonymous, or is there a real distinction between that?
Depends on what you call a wetland and how you define wetland resource area, right? Does it include those areas that we also think are important to, and we regulate, that are not simply just ponds, buffer zone, BVW or, I don't think we're considering it to be wetlands.
Okay,
Yeah.
so wetland resource areas?
Yeah,
Okay,
my recollection.
okay. Let me pull it up here.
But the committee will take that up.
Yes, we will.
What is the issue, though? It's just definitions, because
It'd be recalculation, right?
on the mitigation area?
Excuse me, Commissioner, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm happy to provide some clarification on the mitigation if you guys have any questions on it.
You have questions, Dave?
I'm just wondering what what is the issue? Is it just a definition versus he's got everything marked out here as bordering vegetated wetlands and then land subject to flooding? And then he's got the 100-foot and the 200-foot riverfront areas.
I think it's the totals. Is that the biggest issue, Nadia, the total areas
Yeah, so it kind
calculations?
of falls in together, just based off of the Foxborough regulations, the wording of it. If you use wetlands versus wetland resource area, it essentially means two different things. If it's wetland resource area, then with the no net loss, again, in the regulations, it might mean that the mitigation proposed in this project wouldn't be acceptable under the regulations. But if it was wetlands, then it might be okay based off of the regulations. But if it's wetland resource areas, it means that includes riverfront, and this project is most of it is within 100 feet of a riparian zone. So that would mean there would need to be wetland replication or restoration.
So are we looking at the 2-to-1 factor versus the 1-to-1 or 5,000 square foot factor under the Wetlands Protection Act versus the 2-to-1 under the bylaw?
Yes, it would still be 2-to-1 regardless.
Still 2-to-1.
Yep, it would still need to be 2-to-1. It's just the nature of mitigation versus wetland replication or restoration.
May I chime in?
Sure.
Please.
Excellent. So the mitigation that's being proposed under this project is strictly being proposed to comply with the riverfront redevelopment standards. So those are set forth under the state regulations. We took a close look at the Foxborough bylaw and wetland regulations. So the riverfront regulations under your bylaw essentially point right back to the state regulations. There's no difference. There's no additional requirements for the riverfront, which is not uncommon. So
Right.
the mitigation work, it's all buffer zone mitigation. We're not proposing any wetland restoration or wetland replication at this point. To comply with the riverfront redevelopment standards, we're removing a portion of the driveway as part of restoration of the buffer. And then we're providing mitigation within that buffer zone and also the riverfront in the way of planting. So it's all spelled out very clearly in ECR's memo. We kind of went step by step through those regulations and demonstrate what is degraded, what isn't, how much we can go over, and then what we have to mitigate for. So there's no actual work in the wetland itself. So there's no wetland replication or wetland restoration at this point.
Does that help you, David?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's rather obvious on this plan. I'm just wondering why we're having a
Does that
problem
get
with
us
the
negative?
terminology here. If it doesn't affect the mitigation work, I mean, there's no wetlands being destroyed.
Yeah.
Basically, this activity in here is within the riverfront, which is the buffer zone area more than
And
anything
it's all
else.
just previously disturbed. Let's see what the,
So when you did your site inspection, did you find that there was a difference in the location of the bordering vegetated wetland line versus and the land subject to flooding? Because you brought that up. Is there? Was there?
So that's one of the difficulties with wetland delineation. So I wasn't here, obviously, in the springtime. I don't know where the line was. The concern from Bob and I was that when I went out, Bob had mentioned, and John had also mentioned when he went out, that the water had significantly increased towards the property, where there used to not be an indication of that. And I know that Mass DEP does strongly recommend to only do just like the surveying and the wetland delineation in the springtime. It's the winter time when I went out. It's possible that the flooding happened due to rain events, but it's also possible that it stays there in the springtime if that's how it changes. But that's where the initial concern was with the wetland delineating. But again, I wasn't there in the spring. And the issue with that, which is why I brought it up, is that in the plan where it shows 50.3 feet, I think from the, double check.
From the deck to the wetlands.
Yeah, from the proposed deck, if that delineation ended up being, like any closer, then essentially that proposed deck may not be able to be built. Because that's past the 50 feet. That would be within 50 feet, and it can't be within 50 feet.
Was that any?
If I may chime in again on this matter. So we did, at the site visit, Nadia, Bob, and myself, we walked the entire wetland line. I was under the impression that we were all in agreement while on site. The water's probably as high as it ever is right now. The flooding of that river is flagged out by the mean annual high water line. So that's what we flagged for the actual limit of the river that establishes the riverfront area. Landward of that, we have the limit of the bordering vegetated wetland. We also walked that line. It's fairly well defined by topography. I think Bob got a good look at that on the site during the site visit. And I understand where Nadia is coming from. The water certainly changes, the water levels, but that's only part of the criteria we use when we're delineating these resource areas. Specifically for the bordering vegetated wetland, we're looking at the vegetation that's there as well as the soil conditions, subsurface soil conditions. So we need to find a dominance of wetland vegetation as well as hydric soils. That's what we see along down gradient of the wetland, and then up gradient of that wetland is when you get into your upland vegetation and your upland soils. So that wetland line and mean high water is a solid delineation. I certainly would not move any flagging. We took a close look at it on site, and I'm surprised it's being brought up again.
Mr. Attorney, make a...
I think for purposes of the no net loss, I think looking at this now, reading it, refreshing my memory, let's just consider it to be wetlands.
Consider it wetlands?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that eliminates the issue of replication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because then it'd have to be, just to clarify, it would have to be applied moving forward, just all project, like just wetlands, not wetland resource areas. Okay.
It's not very consistent with some of the other sections of
Okay.
the regulations, so
Okay.
it's gonna have to get tightened up.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Anything else then, or?
Calcs, you're okay with the calcs?
Yeah, I mean, I know David previously mentioned the calculation, so I want to refer that to him too, to make sure that he's okay with everything laid out.
They provided clarification of the different components that are going to be built there versus the graded area, so we have a table that you actually can read.
Yep.
And they did change the riverfront riparian zones, they had reversed, so they've done that. The question is, do you still feel that these calcs are right? Because you mentioned in part of your summary that it looked like it was really larger than what the plans were back when it was built.
Right, yep. That was, obviously I mentioned that because I needed the table to see it, based off of the table that Cameron provided. I do agree with what's there, just based off of the calculations. The thing I also do want to mention, just about the site, obviously I don't know what you guys will vote on based off of this information, but I do just want to maybe just readdress that because the impervious is past that 10%, that whether, you know, this homeowner wants to continue to create more additions or another homeowner comes in, there would also have to be like a motion that no more redevelopment occurs on the site because it's already past that 10%. But that would also just have to be issued not only in the conditions, but also like in terms of like the motion.
Certificate. It
Yep.
goes into the certificate,
Make
right?
it
Yep.
perpetual, yeah.
Right,
We
yep.
got that same situation on East Street for those two lots.
Go into certificate of compliance.
May I respond to that as well? So it's very clearly spelled out in the riverfront redevelopment standards. So Nadia is correct. You can essentially have up to 10% of degraded riverfront on a site. but the redevelopment standards do allow a property owner to go past that 10%, but there's very strict guidelines for that. So provided any excess over 10%, you're required to either mitigate or restore. So that's exactly what we're doing in this case. So I'm not saying this property owner has anything planned in the future or the next owner or anything like that, but that shouldn't be something that's conditioned in the sense that it's a part of the regulations already.
Now
But it wouldn't hurt to reinforce it even if it.
Yeah, because it has to be on record,
Yeah.
at least in the town, it has to be on record in case something does happen.
in both documents,
Yep.
yeah.
I think he's still talking and we can't hear him.
Now, I have
What's
a
that?
technical question. The house is 1966, has cesspool in the back, it looks like. They upgraded the septic system probably because it needed it, what, 2011, 2012?
Correct.
But it didn't come to the Concom because someone didn't realize that the riverfront state laws were in effect in 1996.
Right.
So now you have a septic system approved by the Board of Health, and, they had to meet as far as way they could. It's the only place was the front yard. But there's nothing on record relative to, you never came to the Concom with the Riverfront Act requirements.
Right.
How can we approve going forward without mentioning something about this had been done?
Well, okay.
It's a technical legal.
It's a technical thing, but the Concom did not catch it when it happened in 2011. Do we punish them now for something that we missed in 2011?
I don't use the word punish.
Well, okay.
I'm saying is a way of approving this under that riverfront law requirements as part of this whole package.
Do you want me to take that?
Sure.
Okay.
You're the-
Okay, no, so based off of the research and regulations, if the conservation agent at that time, and again, this is assumptions because just based off of how it would work, if the septic goes to the Board of Health, technically the conservation agent at the time would have to sign off on it and approve it. So even if it was missed by the conservation agent at the time, it is something that would end up, quotes being a wash at this point, because it was presumed by the conservation agent that, one, either it wasn't caught, or two, it was fined by them. So we can't necessarily go back in it, but what we can do is in these plans or in the narrative, it can be specified what the square footage was, and that can be included. That could be included more in the calculations. That could be in the narrative, wherever that gets placed, just so that it is on record. Again, obviously, if something were to happen in the future with, this homeowner or another, it is on record that had occurred, and what that square footage is.
Excuse me, can I just ask a question? What if back then, and I don't know how things get recorded, but if the agent at the time did an administrative review, would that have been recorded or written down someplace?
Yes, yep,
Okay.
yep. So anything that went through a meeting, anything that was an email, anything that was a letter, it would have been on record. Yep,
Okay.
but nothing could be found that was on record. Yep.
I think that's okay to, include that in essentially the findings section of the order. Right.
Yep. Yep. I think just the biggest question for me to you guys was just if you were okay with the mitigation on the site, if you guys had additional thoughts on, the vegetation. I mean, I mentioned that about the no witch hazel and the 10 feet away from the fence, but if you guys had anything else in regards to that.
I didn't have a chance to walk the site, but I like your idea, thinking ahead, that, bushes start off this big, but, 10 years down the road, they're this big, so
This is,
giving it room to grow is a,
I mean, it's all,
I think it's a good recommendation.
Okay.
yeah, okay.
And then one other thing, just want to clarify too, maybe you could just include it in the narrative. The woodshed, is that going to have a set foundation, or is that going to be not in a set foundation?
I was planning on having it be an actual foundation.
Actual
That part,
foundation?
because it's going to carry the load of the roof above.
Okay,
It would just, I think it would be a better
okay.
construction.
So just the, again, just based off of the regulations, if it does have a set foundation, it then technically wouldn't be exempt unless you put it not in a set foundation.
So then, the deck part was definitely going to be on helical post.
Uh-huh, yep.
Phew. I could look to see about doing that corner to a helical post.
Which corner?
I think the corner you're referring to where it says right next to the roof drain, going out to the Caltech chamber,
Yeah.
where it says woodshed 21 feet.
Yep,
So that corner,
yep.
that part is at the woodshed, it's calling it a woodshed, but it's not really a woodshed, but it's a shed.
Yeah, okay.
All right. I wanted to, bring in, I suppose we could take that area and put that on helical, put the other on helical, and,
Sorry, just as a layperson, because I'm trying my best to follow. So the woodshed is included in the calculations, isn't it?
Yep.
So, I mean, does that address your concern? It is already in the calculations?
talking about the vertical
Because
foundation.
of the, just because so it says it's exempt, right? It says it's, let me just check on this side. Where it says deck, sheds, patios, exempt activities 310. So it would be exempt if it didn't have a set foundation. If it has a set foundation,
See the deck
then it
has
wouldn't be
the
exempt.
helical post and the patio.
Okay.
So what she's referring to is that if that woodshed has a vertical foundation, 4 feet below grade, which that's all it would be on slab, but just the fact that it's excavated out
Yeah,
versus having a post is making that much of a
Right.
difference, regardless of what's above it. I suppose we could change that area, so it's basically this way here, so we're coming in off the addition here like this, and then the garage comes in, and then how we have that little part that's like an indentation. I would just have to stop the foundation there, and then put a helical post here, a helical post there, run beams and posts to that area. I'll
If it's doable, that's
I'll
fine.
figure it out. But
Okay.
we'll put it on post.
okay. That would just, obviously, when you do note that, I would just include that in the conditions. Because then that would obviously affect the impervious, so that's just where that comes in, because then that might result in more technically mitigation on the property.
I got to chime in too, real quick, just because that was included in our degraded calculations, just so you know. So that's already been included. You'd have to tell me where you're seeing what the difference, the foundation of that makes, because the exemption comes from 10.02, a minor exemption, or the minor exempt activities, which includes the conversion of lawn to accessory structures to a single-family home. It doesn't reference any type of specific foundation that's exempt versus not exempt, unless there's something in the bylaw that I missed. But regardless of that exemption, it was included in the mitigation calculations already.
So, Cameron, sorry, so we didn't use it as an exemption, it's included, so as the calculations work even with a foundation?
That's correct.
Okay.
We counted it as degraded, so it's already been accounted for in terms of the mitigation requirements.
So if we're not exempting it, does that work then? Because the calculations include it, it's not exempted.
Right, I think it still says on here, though, that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up, because it still says exempt activities, decks, sheds, patios on the
All right,
plan.
so if we included those, we could just remove that statement then from the plan? Because they are in the square footage, correct, 822 square feet?
The 822?
right? That includes the woodshed, the patio, and the deck.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, we could just remove that statement because they're not exempted in the calculation.
I believe that note on the plan is referring to the fact that those are exempt from the riverfront requirements, which is very clearly spelled out in the regulations. If anybody has their regulations in front of them, I can direct them exactly to where it's spelled out. Regardless of the exemption, we still have to account for it being degraded, and that's where we get our mitigation numbers.
So we have to do, even if we do the foundation, it doesn't make a difference.
Exactly.
And the foundation would make it that much structure, much better to have it than to do it on post.
Then I just want to make sure you're comfortable so that you can see where it is in the calculation for 822 square feet, the right table, column of the table. So if it's included in there, that addresses your concern, correct?
Right, because that's
Okay.
the impervious, right?
Okay, perfect.
That's the impervious calculation?
Correct.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. Does anyone else have thoughts?
I'm okay with the foundation. I'm gonna do it that way. Because the numbers work out, and that includes the mitigation amounts. So we're where we need to be. So, and it's a better structure if you do a foundation versus what you're talking, have to raise.
That's great, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
When would you propose doing the mitigation? You gonna do it this spring to catch the growing season and not wait until all this is done? And like a lot of times they wait until the end of the project before they go out and do the landscaping, and
Right.
yeah, it could be middle of the summer, it could go into dry fall.
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know if we'd be ready to move forward as soon as this spring, but if it's preferable to the commission to wait until the next spring, if we started over the summer and, because I agree, obviously we want these things to take, right? So we'd certainly be willing to do it in the appropriate planting season for the bushes or the trees or whatever's recommended, absolutely.
Are you worried about phasing? Like you want the construction to phase in?
I'm
A
worried
certain
about
way.
that these mitigation or restoration projects are usually done at the last.
Okay, so you would prefer to have it done early in
Yeah.
the project? But these guys, well, you don't know when you're gonna start, right?
No, we don't. So I mean, I'd be happy to do it, but if we started in the middle of the summer, it sounds like maybe that's not the best time. So I defer to you, but we're happy to do it at a time of year that makes sense.
Are they gonna have their erosion control land? Is that, your concern is you're gonna have you have an ongoing construction site and nothing's out there to sort of work.
Well, the
Mitigation area to-
Well, the erosion control and the limits
Yeah.
of construction are gonna be put in immediately.
Then, I mean, the mitigation area then should just be put on when it's appropriate, right? Not really
Yeah.
before or after the construction, it's just when it's most
Yeah.
appropriate.
When they take out the fence, I would say that's probably when they're going to do the planting.
Okay.
Because this fence has got to be relocated,
Right.
Okay.
because the fence is back here now.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
But if the question is, whenever we start the project, we could certainly work to do the plantings first. My only concern would be, to your point, if we start in July, is that not ideal for plantings, that's all. But,
I would say when you're starting to redo the fence.
Okay.
Would be the appropriate, I mean, again, weather dependent, but
that's
That-
very reasonable.
it
I
makes sense to
can
me.
make that specific in the conditions. If
Okay.
you want, like, I could put different scenarios in there, like, start when the fence happens, but, if X,
Yeah,
Y, Z.
weather
Yeah,
dependent,
Yeah,
yes.
weather
Sure.
dependent.
In a drought. don't
Start when
plant
it's drought.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Winter, do not plant in the winter.
Agreed.
I think you should put also in there that when these plantings occur, that they should notify you in the office, so you
Yep,
can go
okay.
down and see it after they've got it in. The grass might not be growing or anything like that, but at least you've seen it's been done.
Yep. No, I could put that in there. Thank you.
We've only had problems in the past in some projects, they just don't do that restoration work or plantings until, 2 years later,
Okay, understood.
a year to 2 years later, and it just doesn't work out.
Anything else? Do you have any comments from the audience? If not, may I hear a motion?
So, I don't know, do you want to close the hearing and have Nadia prepare a decision and put that on the next agenda? But that's 21 days from now, so if we did that, you guys would have to give us an extension because you have 3 weeks to file, issue an order. Or do you want to continue the hearing and Nadia can work on all these conditions and stuff and everybody can talk about it at the next meeting?
It's up to what you guys want to do. I'm game for either. I mean, if you want to see the conditions, have a
Sounds
chance
like
to
they're
review
pretty
them.
basic. The planting, that's pretty basic
Yeah.
conditions that get thrown in. Most NOIs with plantings are involved. You could close it tonight, and then, like you said, you just have to sign that you're okay with the 21 days expiring that they're supposed to.
Yeah, I can send that to you.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that, assuming, obviously, the conditions will only include what we've talked about, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
We're not going to throw anything else at
And then will we need to come back to your next meeting, or is it okay if we don't?
No,
No, okay.
One thing in part of the conditions is that when you put in the limit of construction or disturbance with the orange fencing, and then the erosion controls, you need to notify the office so that she comes out and inspects it before any further work or digging goes on.
So the orange snow fence, I call it, the orange fence, and the siltation sock,
Right.
Yeah.
done before the fence comes out?
For the house
Well, that's-
So
construction.
before you do any construction or
Before
digging,
any excavating?
yeah,
Okay, but we don't have to do that for the fence to come out?
we need, the limits of construction are defined by the orange fence that's put up by the contractor.
but that's all within the fence area, so
Yeah.
Okay,
there's,
we can do that.
yeah, you show that, well, within even the new fence area. So,
And then Craig, just one thing, when I do those conditions, did you want to just update the plan, just like labeling the planting and saying how far away they were and stuff?
Right, we can do that and get that back to you before the next meeting.
Yep, okay. Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to close the hearing on 24 Alden Street, DP number 157-653.
Second?
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None?
Should we just make a
Thank you
motion
very
to
much.
accept the waiver of the 21-day?
Yeah.
So we don't have to do it in writing. Make a motion to accept the applicant's waiver of the 21-day time period for issuing decisions after close of hearing on the DEP 157-653.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
In 7:15, we have a continuation for Creighton Lane, NOI 157652. Do you have anyone? Yep, on Zoom, okay.
Graham.
Just for the record, name, please,
Karen Skinner-Catroni.
and welcome.
Thank you. So we were here at the last meeting. I believe the commission was all set with the plan. We just didn't have a DEP file number, so it had to be continued.
Is there anything else?
No, we got the DP numbers.
Just getting the number.
All right, then I'll, did we already close the hearing on this?
No, we didn't close it because we didn't have a number.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to close the hearing on 12 Creighton Lane, DP number 157-653. 652.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Do we have the order of conditions? Okay.
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions approving the project as proposed for 12 Creighton Lane, DEP number 157-652.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Around.
There you go, sir.
Is it coming around?
Is that better?
What's that?
You should tell her it's all set. And
Oh, okay.
All set.
It's all set. We're signing
Okay,
it
great.
now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You
You
too.
as well. Okay, 67 Green Street. We have a request for a certificate of compliance for 157491. That's a little bit old. How do you want to, you and I were there, I'll let you,
Let's discuss what we did.
yeah?
Okay. So Bob and I went out. We just made sure that everything on the as-built plan was everything up to par. There wasn't any changes. We didn't find that there were any changes. It was mentioned about the gravel area, that technically it was approved to have a different, another addition, but that addition wasn't built and it's now expired. And the company wasn't interested in the addition, so everything looked good to us.
All right.
Any questions, comments from the board? Somebody want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 67 Green Street, DEP number 157-491.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? You got that paperwork? It's coming around? Okay.
So that'll be issued in the next few days.
Okay,
I can email it to you and
Great.
send a hard copy.
and we'll record. Thank you. Send you a recorded copy after it goes on record as well. Yes.
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. We have 17 Green Street, Spring Street, reading the wrong numbers there. How are you this evening?
I'm fine, thank you. Stephanie Ward, owner of 17 Spring Street. I was asked to come back and give you an update. When I met with you last time, November 25th, I contacted Rich Leslie at Bay Colony Group the next day.
Okay.
And talked with him extensively. Bay Colony had previously done a survey of my property at my request a couple of years back. I explained the situation, and at the time, Rich Leslie said they couldn't do anything because it's winter. And I checked in with him again. He went and spoke with Nadia on Tuesday, and I wasn't there, so I'm assuming he reiterated what he said to me, that the wetlands are under snow cover, that the vegetation is dormant, that the stream bed right now is dry, so there's really nothing they can do until the weather changes. So that's where we stand. I sent photos to Nadia, and I brought them with me. This is, you've seen my house before. This is my sloping driveway. It's been an extremely mild season, so I really haven't had much water at all coming in. I'll pass these around, but I've got a minor puddle. And for me, it's extremely minor compared to what I showed you last time, what I've been through. So it may be working, or we're just getting lucky with the season. And this is what it looks like along the side where they put in the gravel bed, which is well beyond the 100 feet from the wetland.
Yes.
We didn't deal with this, with the stream bed at the time, and I'm not going to speculate on whether this is over the 200 feet until we get someone, an engineer or someone to make that determination. So that's where we stand.
Okay. Okay. We're making progress.
Yeah, not really, but we'll wait till it gets warmer and things start to grow.
Yes. Any comments?
Only thing for me is just my notes that I wrote, just how you guys want to proceed with it. I think it would be best if we did a permit and then we put in the conditions, obviously, if there was mitigation that needed to be had, but that's at a later point. But I am going to work with Rich Leslie on it, just to see when he has a timeline of just the plans to get it to us. Obviously, given the delineation time frame, it's winter, so I'm going to work with him on a timeline, and then obviously update you all on what he says.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll wait to hear from you and when I need to come back, right?
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Do you want these, or do you? You have the emails for.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Anybody have anything else? Nadia, anything else?
Well, that's it for the agenda, I think, right?
Yep. Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you very much.